It's Wednesday evening again here at the Tirconaill Tribune. It's our 37th paper of the year as we head deep into autumn, and we're just going to look at a few of the headlines behind the headlines in our own paper, if you know what I mean. And we're going to look at Fianna Fáil's identity crisis. I mean, what's wrong there? What happened to them? They're 95 years old this last May there, on the 26th of May. So how could they have a crisis?
Are they not still Fianna Fáil?
Apparently not. Sinn Féin has stolen their clothes.
They should have a thinking maybe to get it all sorted.
But they had one, and they had the phones all put into bags. There's Ziploc bags. And that was last Thursday evening.
Have the phones come out yet?
Well, they all hidden away, I wonder. Because apparently Wally O'D wanted to speak. And there was a fast one pulled it because the floor after dinner was given over for as long as was needed for those long-winded speakers to speak for as long as they needed. And sometime before midnight, Wally O'D was almost breaking out in a sweat. He was up trying to get notice that he had his hand raised. He was told there was 8 or 10 people ahead of him. So apparently he left the room and drove home to Limerick. Probably fair disgusted that he went up in the first place. But John McGuinness, fair play to him, he didn't bother going. He sent a nice letter, I believe. So apart from that, Sean Fleming's report on what happened at the last election was eventually released. And it's not all that exciting, but it covers a lot of lumps and bumps, but it avoids the hard questions. Why did they lose their identity? We have done a good bit on that in our editorial this week.
And were they focusing too much on Sinn Féin?
Apparently they were focusing on a bit on Sinn Féin, all right. So they never stopped talking about them. And we've been always saying in our editorials that Fianna Fáil has always been Sinn Féin's best recruiting agent, and the day that Micheál Martin stops criticising them, Sinn Féin will start fading. But we're saying that the Celtic Tiger is Fianna Fáil's identity, and I don't think I'll be ever changing my mind about that because it took time to write over 2,000 words of an editorial on it. Then we had Fine Gael also. They had their thinking yesterday, it's probably still going on today. They were supposed to have had a barbecue yesterday evening in Trim, and then a team building session all day today, and in between who done what and why did they do it, in relation to Catherine's opponent, what Micheál Martin was told and what he wasn't told, and what Micheál Martin heard or didn't hear.
Is Catherine part of the team or not?
Catherine is still in the United States. I think she has an invitation to come back to address the Heritage Committee, which I'm sure she'll not be taken up. But they're probably still meeting up in Trim. I don't know what else they've going on this afternoon apart from the team building. Probably a bouncy castle or something like that. Then, big news from the Green Party as well, Eamon Ryan. The train is going to be leaving Letterkenny again someday soon. Probably for the first time since 1959,
yeah, the late 1950s, yeah, because I just happened to be at a launch of murals at the station house there just a couple of weeks ago, and there was no chat about Eamon Ryan and his idea of the train starting again at that stage anyway. So it's certainly been news to them too, I would say.
Do any of you believe that there's going to be a train leaving Letterkenny in the next 10 years, given that we have no proper dual carriageway from here to Dublin or from here to Galway or from here to anywhere else nearly? We hardly have a proper cycling route outside that would take us out of Donegal, and probably we don't have a proper cycling route that would take us around the whole of Donegal.
No.
So
is it from Donegal to Cork? A proposal is for
Donegal.
That's
the
corridor.
It's not going to be quite as simple as that. You'll have to get to Derry first, so there is a train link from Derry to Belfast. So you probably end up in Belfast or Portadown, which used to be the case 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. But this is a grand idea, it's a grand notion. But I just wonder, what does that do for the fortunes of the Green Party, given that they took just a couple of percentage points, 1,656 votes at the last general election. And I'm just thinking to myself, would it not be better to concentrate on investing a lot more money into Carrickfinn Airport to ensure that it has a continuing link to Dublin, to Glasgow, regardless of cost, because we're spending money everywhere else. And the idea of a well, they're talking about electrifying the rails. That's the Green Party. Now I don't know if they got burnt with that idea of what, but
Is the
anyway.
A5 still on the?
well, you can't mention that anymore. I mean, that's kind of old news.
Outside the EU now.
So all the parties now have had their thinkings and now all back into Leinster House tomorrow or this Wednesday afternoon.
I suppose the budget's the next thing.
The budget's the next thing, and they were all the week in politics with Daniel Lawler was back on again, and the big exciting thing about that was the new frames that Owen O'Brien has in his glasses. They're absolutely stunning. You wondered was that the local window cleaner that had arrived in? But anyway, the other big news is Gareth Brooks is coming back to Ireland. He was last here in 1994 when he played the Point Depot for 6 nights, and that was the biggest thing since Pope John Paul's visit in 69, was it? 79? 79. So he's coming back and the row is on already. Is he going to play 3 nights? Is he going to play 5 nights? And it seems this is all to be sort of identified and sorted out by Dublin City Council.
It was interesting yesterday evening. It seemed to be leaking out yesterday evening,
Yeah.
and getting official confirmation of anything at that stage was
Robert Mazzell must have
Yeah,
known because he has
difficult.
already written to him to be one of the support acts on one of the nights.
And a big gig for Robert.
He says it'll be the biggest stage of his life, and he's a big fan. He has recorded one album, totally dedicated to Gareth Brooks' songs, Friends and Low Places and all that kind of thing. It could have been written for Ireland, so it could. But anyway, Declan, we're going to move on inside to the Tribune to see what Kieran McLaughlin is doing with a new business.
Yes, Kieran McLaughlin's a native of Tirconaill in Milford, now based in Leixlip in County Kildare. And 2 weeks ago he's launched a new business, a socks business. It's retro socks. He has always harboured the idea of running or starting his own business, and the idea of the socks, well, it came probably, he's seen a friend of his starting a business in retro football shirts, GA shirts, like
Right.
Dublin and that sort of stuff. So
Popular.
Kieran took the idea from there, and he researched it and done some design work over the last 6 or 7 months, and he's launched it now, and he's had a great reaction so far, even nationally on Today FM.
Can we go out and buy a pair of them at this point, or are they
You can,
available?
yeah, they're available now through his website. Full details are on the paper here.
How would we look wearing a pair of the are they in Donegal colours?
Yeah,
Especially Fine Gales.
there's a couple of counties. There's a couple of counties done already, and he's planned for many more in the months ahead. And obviously he's at this stage he's looking at maybe the Christmas market and that sort of stuff.
It's a
And
good time of year now with the winter, with the evenings drawing in to get a pair of Wally socks.
Yeah. I suppose he's looking at it from that people can wear them on a casual basis and out to functions and that sort of stuff. It's not the big long socks up to your knee now.
Yeah.
Like the footballers.
Quirky idea, I'm sure.
What exactly are they? Are they ankle socks or
Yeah, they would be pretty much in that sort of line. Yeah, ankle socks.
sports socks really?
Yes, it is a sports sock. It's mainly GAs, but he intends to branch into other sports, soccer, League of Ireland, that sort of stuff as well. So you might be able to get your Finn Harp socks in the next 4 or 5 months.
Fair play to Finn Harps, they're doing quite well at the moment. A big game coming up again at the weekend.
Yeah, a cup quarter final against Dundalk on Friday night, and they've had a good run recently.
Just a disappointing result on Monday night.
Yeah,
though.
Monday night. But there's
Bohemians, but again controversial.
a couple of controversies in it, but they had a run of 7 games unbeaten before that. So listen, it's in an overall context, Ollie Horgan, Paul Haggerty and the team are doing
Are they
a
now
good job.
playing their way out of danger?
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly.
it looks good.
It's looking quite positive at this stage. Yeah.
How many games were left?
But 9 games now
9
left.
games.
I think it's 9. Yeah.
Eamon, you're going back 20 years now, I notice.
20 years, and if there were vintage cars back 20 years ago, they're even more vintage now, I suppose. But that's a piece from the Tirconaill archives, 2001, when the Cortina Club of Ireland were preparing to come and basically hold one of their major national classic runs here in Donegal, and it was based up in Jackson's Hotel in Ballybofey. A huge amount of interest in that there, because there was a Cortina Owners Club. It was founded back in 1993, and there was a lot of people here locally that were involved in that there. Pictured here, actually in the paper you'll see is Willie Boyce of Creasla, who was one of the well-known, most enthusiastic members of it all, and Willie had played a role in that.
That picture was taken on the day of the 9/11 crash, or crashes into a Manhattan and the Pentagon.
You remember taking that day?
I was just across the street from where we're sitting here. And I interviewed him outside in the car. And it was on that same day that a well-known printer belonging to the Tribune had crashed one of our cars. And Francis and myself were over in the printing shed, setting off to print our own handmade Tirconaill Tribune, because our printer had absconded. And he never came back. We don't know where he went to. So that was the memories of that day there. Very vivid memories, because the television screen was showing the plane crashes, and the whole world was literally, just for that split second, probably for several moments, turned upside down.
Stood still almost, yeah.
Stood still.
Yeah, everyone seems to remember where they were on that day.
Yeah, and like it was all brought back there at the weekend, you know. Very emotional. The President, Joe Biden, visited all of the 3 locations and laid wreaths there. Huge outpouring of support for going into Afghanistan at the time.
Yeah.
And like ironically, that has ended in absolute and total failure for them.
Abject, yeah.
Let us move on then to you, Declan, again.
Yeah.
The race is cancelled.
Yeah, just news coming into us in the last little while that the race is cancelled. It was due to go ahead on Saturday, and we're told that it's been cancelled due to an insurance issue. So it's a huge disappointment for. I think there's up to 100 people had entered for it. A lot of people locally, and a lot of people have devoted a lot of time to training, I suppose, over the summer, but also over the last year. And the news coming just a couple of days before it starts is people are just gutted by the news.
Do we know what the issue is surrounding the insurance?
Not the specific issue. Not
no.
the specific issue. What we're told is that they had insurance cover for last year. The event didn't go ahead, and they were hoping to roll it over.
How difficult is it to insure a big event of that kind, or indeed any event that's out on the roads?
That's a very difficult. It's hard to understand just how.
Because I've had experience with this earlier on in the year, in another race in early summertime, driving up Nacala, not being aware that the race was on, because I wouldn't be driving up Nacala. But here they were coming hammering down at a very hectic speeds and zigzagging. These were cyclists, and they were zigzagging out and in between support vehicles. And it was a hair-raising run up to the top of the mountain where I got parked, till I got a break to drive on again. I was an hour late arriving in Rathmullen.
Yeah.
I just thought to myself, how can that be allowed? No issue with the race, but the fact that this is on a very wide open road, and on very dangerous bends, you think to yourself, what happens if somebody collides with a car here?
Yeah,
the
speed that's involved.
I don't know if there's probably no great way of marshalling those things.
Well,
you can imagine
250 kilometres is the stretch of the race. So
part of it's on public roads, and then there's parts of it then that will be held like off roads, like they used to run through Glenveigh National Park and Muckish, and so there's all sorts of terrain in it as well. So how, as you say, John, how would you? I know it took a huge volunteer effort to marshal all the points. Nearly as many volunteers as there would be competitors.
But it's probably like that kind of race there, 250 kilometres. Be very hard to marshal that.
Oh yeah, I mean you can only spread what you have very lightly over, and getting volunteers is a huge challenge in itself.
I think the fact that it's over 24 hours, the people that marshal it at the front can kind of go ahead of the race a little bit so it's not like it happens like they're in place for 24 hours.
You could be standing out somewhere like the top of Horn Head on a very bad evening or a bad night, waiting for the last of the competitors to go past. And I know, and that can take for ages.
But that event, from just having watched it before, is that basically if you don't reach a certain point by a certain time, you're excluded from the race, and that's where so it stops people taking all day to get around the course. So, I
suppose
it's the people who are booked.
It's a big issue to lose it.
Visit.
But having had it cancelled this year, Declan, can that insurance issue be resolved, or can it be run without insurance?
That is very unclear at the moment. We just don't know. The notification for the time being is that it's cancelled for this year, and people who have entered will be reimbursed. But as we speak now, we don't know what the future is for.
But isn't it very late in the day to sort of
that
is on you that you've had that cancelled?
That is what has has, I suppose, infuriated the entrant as well. It's so late. Why the decision in relation to a matter like insurance would be this, couldn't have been resolved either, or else notification that it wasn't going ahead.
Listen, time is moving on here. We're going to look in at the front page, and we have a nice piece here about a tractor run.
Very special tractor run that's going to be taking place in Creasle now on October 2nd. That'll be very well supported, I've no doubt. So basically it's a tractor run in memory of the late Michael McGinley. Michael was from Fimore in Creasle, and just almost a year ago now he sadly passed away after he was from injuries received in a road traffic collision. He's only just had, I think I just turned 21 or was about to turn 21 when it happened, but he was a great man for the tractor runs. He was a great fellow for his family and his friends and his neighbours and all. That's a bright man altogether, with engineering and anything to do with his hands at all. And the Creasle Vintage Club now are going to hold a tractor run in his honour now on October 2nd, so I've no doubt that that'll be a big day and a nice positive way to remember him. By all accounts, he was when he passed away, he was remembered as a gentleman.
21, wasn't he?
21 years of age. And someone said that his second home was the garage. He was just one of those real practical fellas and a real worker. A lovely picture to accompany it there too.
Yeah, we'll be highlighted a bit more closer to the event.
Absolutely.
But for now, this week we're going to move to the front page, and a very eye-catching picture here from Ramelton. And they can dress up as only the Ramelton ones can, as thespians, actors, actresses, and great characters, and makeup and all this. Des Patterson, a well-known figure out of Swilly Park, he wasn't able to celebrate his 30th birthday as he would have wanted to do due to the restrictions, so his extended family decided to dress up as his favourite movie characters. Guess what? They then had a party in Casablanca. I hope they got back safely from that. They all know in Ramelton where Casablanca is. We have the main story is about Micah, and that's in relation to Councillor Frank McGuirty seeking files in relation to our Ramelton estate. That's one of the areas that he's following up at the moment. And he has asked Donegal County Council to provide him with all files relating to a housing estate in Ramelton as part of his ongoing investigation into Micah and defective housing in the county. The particular estate has 34 houses, and he's investigating claims about defective properties and the Micah issues there, and seeking confirmation on a range of queries across the sale of the properties and what was their condition when they were actually occupied. Were they defective then? This is going to run because Frank McGuirty is getting a huge amount of queries. He's looking at the whole legal angle of this. He always has done that from day one. And at the same time, we're waiting now for the Micah Action Group themselves to publish their own initial report.
Yeah, that's coming on Friday. Yeah. On Friday now, they're presenting their final papers to the government, and they're going to publish what's in that as well, sometime shortly after that.
And then we'll wait for Darragh O'Brien, the minister, to come up with something, probably in the beginning of October.
Yeah.
Do you see that answering any questions? Or?
Well, I mean, talking to a few of the main players on it over the last 24 hours, and the word is hope, but there's no 100%. As in the redress, there's no 100% confidence that that's going to be, that they're going to get what they're looking for.
Somewhere else in that story there, Paddy Dover has categorically denied that he's going to join Sinn Féin and run for them at the local elections.
Yeah, I spoke to Paddy and he said that. He said no, that rumour was going around, but I think
it has been out there on social media, from what I understand. I'm not a big social media person because it's a madhouse, and I prefer not to go there. So let's leave it at that for this week. Thank you both, and we'll talk soon again.